Hello.
Hi, welcome back. It's been a week
Yep,
or longer. We were in Vegas.
we were in Vegas.
Yeah, that's why we're so tan and glowy. It's not the lighting, it's actually us. Episode 54, did we say?
Yep,
Yeah.
54.
Mm-hmm.
Good year.
Wow, 54 was a good year?
That's my age, so.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Say 1954, I don't
I
understand.
meant age, yeah.
Like who's, okay. All right. The Man in the Box. That's what we're going to call this episode, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Loosely named, not loosely, very directly named after Alice in Chains' song. Just the title. It's
Absolutely.
not about the lyrics or anything. But
yeah, it's an interesting topic.
Yes, of course. And it's a little bit about
self-segregation.
Yeah, right. Isolating yourself.
Yep.
Those types of things.
Yeah.
We see it everywhere.
Oh my goodness,
right?
we do.
Yeah. But we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about some of our most recent experiences with that. Actually, more your recent experiences, not mine.
You were there.
I was there. It wasn't mine. But first, I'm sorry, I had to go to radio voice. I was never on the radio, but I just have a radio voice. Soiree Wellness at LA Tan. We're getting close to finishing up.
Yeah.
I am. You still have a little bit longer.
I do.
We'll see how the results go.
Yep.
The jury's still out. We'll see how it goes.
Yep.
It's been good. The red light, though, is still working for us.
Amazing.
Yeah. Obviously, if anybody's interested, they can reach out to those folks. It's Cricket, of course, right in the middle of everything, as always. Timing's impeccable. It's been all over us since we got back. Anyway, yeah, if you're interested in learning more about it, obviously reach out to us. The Emerald Laser we've been doing to help us along with our fat loss.
Yep.
Red light therapy.
It's doing wonders on my cellulite that wasn't even the reason I was doing it, but
Right.
Holy shit.
Right.
Yeah.
You believe it's the red light doing that for you.
It has to be because I haven't done
you didn't
anything.
target anything
nope,
with
I have not.
Interesting.
Nope.
I think that's pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome, but it also goes in line with what I've read about red light.
Sure.
So, yep.
Sure. Yeah, so if anybody has questions, reach out to us. We'll answer what we can. Otherwise, call them.
Yep.
You can ask for Sky or Sam or Lorelei. Those are the three mains that we see.
Yep.
And just, of course, let them know we told you to call.
Yep.
And maybe they'll hook you up. We'll see. No guarantees. But anyway, so back to the Man in the Box.
Yeah.
Self-segregation. We struggled with the title a little bit. Not really, but we did because sometimes our titles are elusive. I like our titles. They're fun.
I do too.
Yeah.
Well, that's how we get people to listen.
Right. Is that what it is?
It's like
not the content.
Headline.
It's not the
no,
content.
but
right.
The good news is that ours has the substance to back it up. It's not just a bullshit headline and garbage through the rest of it. It's all in line.
Because we're professional talkers, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Substance.
Yes.
It's funny. So what is it? What do we say? So I think there's a lot of things self-segregation.
Oh,
let me try that again. A lot of things that self-segregation, or a lot of things that qualify as self-segregation.
Well, when you think about it, I think about going back to the 80s. We reference this a lot, going back to the movies, and think about one of the movies from the 80s, The Breakfast Club.
Mm-hmm.
And they named everyone: the jock, the princess, the brain,
right.
whatever, the criminal, and the outcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, those were all titles that were placed on people because they belonged to a certain group. Okay,
right.
whatever.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So if you wanted to be part of one of those groups, you had to ultimately dress like them, talk like them, do whatever like they do in order
a certain
to
lifestyle.
to fit in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we've seen it literally our entire lives. I personally never bought into it. I don't like being told I'm this one thing.
Right.
I don't understand, especially in this day and age where everybody, nobody wants to be just this or just that or just this, yet at the same time, they're all self-segregating themselves.
Right.
And I'm a Christian, I'm a Democrat, I'm a woman, I'm this, I'm that. It's like, okay, well, can you be all those fucking things?
Right.
I know I am. I'm a lot of different things. I'm
Right.
not just this, or this. And so I think it's funny how, in one sense, people want to be, everyone should get along and do whatever, yet you
Right.
you go into a room and everybody goes off into their little cliques in the corner.
Right.
It's like we all graduated from high school, but some people mentally are still there for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I think it's hard for people sometimes. I know growing up for me, I was poor. I wasn't popular, unlike now. I know, sorry. I wasn't popular. I did some stuff. There were a few popular people around, but I wasn't necessarily part of their group.
Mm-hmm.
I was more of a Ronald Miller, right?
Great show.
Right?
Great
You
movie.
Can't Buy Me Love, right?
Great movie.
So I didn't have the money to dress like they did. And that's what was portrayed back then, at least from my standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
because you wanted to be part of that. Now, I was never treated poorly. I can't say that I was bullied necessarily like that. It's just you weren't
included,
right? And that wasn't me doing that. That was just their clique doing it.
right?
And what we see, though, even as adults, people want to go to an event, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want to go network.
Yeah.
And they never fucking network.
Nope.
They go and see the people that they know and they hang out. And I'm just as guilty, but I don't go because I go because I want to support you or whoever's having the event. I don't give a shit about networking most of the time,
Yeah.
So I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
If I meet somebody and I talk to them, then great.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not hiding from them, but I'm not making an effort to go do it.
Right.
I do realize that in certain business, it's important. And if I need to do that, I can.
Right.
But I'm like, okay, I don't care. Because I'm not looking for popularity. I'm not looking to gain anything anymore.
Yeah.
Unless I'm there for a specific purpose.
Right.
Right?
Of course.
In these folks go to these networking events. That's the whole purpose of them. They're not necessarily the ones that aren't there for someone specific just to support them or whatever.
Right.
They don't network. And then they wonder why they have an issue. And that's because they sit in the corner with the two other people that they know at the event and they never meet anybody else.
Or talk to anyone else.
Yeah.
And then you have other people who come in and they're walking around saying hello to everyone and they're pegged as a weirdo or overzealous or annoying or whatever. So that's what's so funny about all of it, though, is that that's the whole purpose, right? Is to try to get to know people and talk to people that you don't know. And the other thing that I find funny is, like, when we say self-segregating, when you're putting yourself in a box, ultimately, that's exactly what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You're drawing a line in the sand. Oh, you like country music? I hate country music. I'm not going to talk to you. You're one of those people that listens to country music. So I think the part that I struggle with is I love that people have passions. I love that people have convictions. Yeah. I love that people have beliefs, things that they believe in, and that they're so passionate about that they'll stand up on a soapbox in the middle of Times Square and shout to the rooftops for their cause or whatever, right? However, along with all that passion and everything else, where the fuck is the other stuff that goes along with it? The grace for other people. Yeah. To have difference of opinion. To be able, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're
have your own thought.
Like, and is it yours or is it someone else's that was thrust upon you, or you read, that this is the thing to do right now, so I'm going to go do this because it has to be yours. And again, the people who want to talk about being authentic, You're
Right.
authentically being someone else. Good for
Right.
you.
Right.
So
That's not your truth. It's someone else's.
it just, it makes me sad for people
Yeah.
because it's like everyone's trying so hard to connect and fight for things. And there's a difference between fighting for something that's right or, that's good or justice or, a cause or whatever. It's wonderful to have that passion. You don't have to do it like fight, like, "Ugh," like,
Right.
fuck you and I hate you because you're
Yeah.
different. And it's like,
Well,
you're people say that one thing, I'm so loving and whatever, and then out of the other thing they're fucking, I hate you because you're
yeah.
different than me.
Well,
Which is it?
I think yes. Which is it? I think, I brought this up in one of the previous episodes about we've evolved enough to not. I think inherently as people we're tribal, right? And I agree with that. I've heard this
Yep.
discussed on podcasts.
Wayne Dyer always
And
said it.
I didn't know and still don't know that much about Wayne Dyer. So,
Yeah.
but I've heard other podcasts talk about how people are tribal.
Mm-hmm.
And that is true. I mean, if you look throughout history,
Mm-hmm.
they stay in their communities, and if anything from outside comes in,
It's a threat.
it's a threat. And a lot of times back then it was a threat.
Of course.
And leaving that community and going to a different one was also unheard of.
Right.
So we are tribal because there's safety in being tribal.
Okay.
But we're also, again, like I said, we've evolved.
Correct.
So we're not that way anymore. So because of that, we can allow ourselves, it's okay to be a little bit tribal. Those are your people.
Of course.
Okay.
Of
So
course.
that's where the tribal part comes in. If they are actually your people.
Yeah.
Okay. If it's a set of beliefs that you have and you they have the same ones, then maybe those are your people. You guys react and act and do things the same and in alignment with one another. Those may be your people. That doesn't mean you can't meet and talk to and learn from other people.
How else are you supposed to learn?
Right.
Because if we're doing the same thing and we have everything the same and something new comes in, how are we learning about this if we're not talking to people that actually are living this or believe in this or what? I want to learn from the people that's their lives, their culture, their religion, their race, their political views, whatever it is. I want to learn, but you can't learn that if you're always around the same kind of people all the time.
Correct. And, I know we talked about this a little bit before because we had touched on religion. We also touched on culture. That doesn't, just because you go learn about somebody's culture doesn't mean you're going to stray from yours.
Right.
You have to think about it and go, okay, what's my goal here?
Right.
Do I not like my culture? Do I hate the way that it is?
Right.
Because some people don't like the way their culture is or their religion is or whatever, and they're seeking to find the right path, and it doesn't matter what it is.
They don't feel like they belong.
Right. They don't feel like they belong, just like dorks in the 80s, right? The Ronald Millers of the world. If for those of you that have not seen Can't Buy Me Love, you need to go watch that movie.
Absolutely.
It's such a fun, funny, stupid, great movie. Classic 80s movie. Plug for Can't Buy Me Love. Send me some royalties. But so going back, you had that experience recently, right? So with a little bit of tribalism.
Yeah.
And I have some thoughts on it. And I know we probably talked about some of them, but you were at an event recently and you had a little bit of that. Tell me what happened. Or tell the people out there what happened.
So I was at a fundraising event and I sat at a table. It was seat yourself. Everyone got to sit down and I went in as always smiling, friendly.
Yeah.
Ready to talk to whoever wanted to chat with me.
Ready to play on the playground, Tina.
Always.
Yes.
Always. I mean, that's just who I am. And so I sat down at the table, put my stuff down at the table, and there was a chair in between us, and there was an older guy sitting at the table, and I walked up and I shook his hand. I introduced myself. I said, my name is Tina. He told me his name. And and then like his fiance came over and introduced herself, and so but then the rest of the people, everybody sat down at the table, and Nothing.
Yeah.
Nobody, like I smiled, they smiled back, but nobody told me what their names were. Nobody else told me. So
Right.
just those two people, and then the rest of the people at the table, they all knew each other. They were talking to each other. And I was like, okay, I mean, I'm not offended by it. I see it differently now as a healed person.
Yeah.
I probably prior to going through my abandonment recovery would have probably been like, what the fuck, and whatever.
Sure.
But now I understand a little more of the sense of, I think nobody's trying to be rude. Like, the intention wasn't to be rude. However, if you're in a certain community and you're spewing out that you love everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and you're um tolerant of everyone's differences, and it doesn't matter, and we're all the same energy and all this other stuff,
Yeah.
and then you can't even be kind to people that you don't know who they are because they're new around you, whatever.
Well,
I
so
question that a little bit. Like, I question it because I didn't know any of them, but I had no problem being friendly and smiling and talking to people.
right. Right.
However, I
It,
didn't get the same thing back, and I was there by myself
yeah.
because I didn't have anyone there
And
with
I
me.
think in um do you feel like, and this is a legit question because I don't know if I asked it when we were talking about it that night.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like they were actually being mean or rude, or do you think they were just keeping to themselves because they don't know?
Well, they all had their own little like these two were talking to each other, and then they were talking to the ones across the table, and they were talking to each other, and then this guy was talking to everybody at the table,
Mm-hmm.
and the engaged couple, like, so they were, and I just sat there smiling and eating my food and drinking my water
Yeah.
and just listening to the conversations.
Right.
But not once did anyone ever engage with me and ask me a question like, how do I know them, the
Yeah.
people there? How did I get
The
invited there? Like, all those kind of things.
yeah.
I thought was kind of funny because,
But did you got the sense that they all already knew each
oh yeah,
other?
they all knew.
Yeah. Okay.
They
Okay.
all already knew each other, and and some of them better than others. Like,
Yeah.
there was clearly like a more of
Yeah.
a closeness, and the other ones maybe just like knew who they were, but they weren't as close. But they all
Sure.
still were talking, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I just was like, okay, this is what it is, and I listened and participated
Right.
in as much as I could, which really was participating in what was happening in the evening. And then at the table, I just, I
Right.
ate and drank and
Well,
listened to
there
the
was a point where
conversation.
you got to go up and speak
I
at
did get
this
asked to
event,
speak. I did, yes.
and this was already pre-planned. So I'm
Yes.
sure there was a little bit of them that went, "Oh shit."
Well, but
Right?
even after I did, they still didn't really say. That's what I'm saying is, like, I
Sure.
came back, like, I sat down, and then when I got called up there, I went up there, I spoke, and then I came back down to the table, and I think they kind of looked at me like,
Well,
what just
you
happened?
said somebody had talked to you, said that you did a good job,
Well,
right?
the guy, the
Yes.
only
The
guy
guy that
that
was talking to everybody. Is
no,
that
the
right?
guy that shook my hand when I
Oh, okay.
introduced myself,
Okay.
and he introduced himself back to me. He said, "You did a really good job." And
Okay.
that was it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't looking for that. I think it was just more so the conversation which prompted this was you watch through the room who was, like, people would stick with their own people,
Yeah.
right? And again, I understand cliques and
Yeah.
whatever, which is why I said made the high school comment. I get it. And like you said, when we go places, we'll sit with people we know as well.
Yeah.
Because you start off trying to be a little more comfortable, until kind of figure out in the room who's where, who do you want to talk to, where do you want to sit, whatever. And then you go, you're putting yourself out there. It's a very vulnerable thing to put yourself out there in a room full of people you don't know.
Yeah.
And so for me, though, I'm proud of myself because I feel comfortable. I sat there, ate my food, listened with a smile, did what I had to do, whatever. And then, that was it. And then when the night was over, I said goodnight to everybody.
So
But I didn't feel like upset or pissed off, or I didn't hate on them for being that
yeah.
way. I think it was more so disappointment in the sense of that group of people, I feel like, kind of talks about how they're more open about things, and it was a little more closed off. I
Sure.
think that's more my
So
thought about it,
I have one thought on it,
Yeah.
and we both know that this is the case. Um, that group of people, it's a spiritual group of people, right? It's people that do energy readings. They do in that whole realm, right?
Hypnosis, Reiki,
Astrology,
astrology,
Reiki,
numerology,
massage therapy, that group, more spiritual,
mediums.
holistic, you know, um, those groups of people, they get taken advantage of, I think, a lot of
Absolutely,
times.
they do.
And I also think that I feel like there are people that pretend to be part of that community so they can get in there and try to make money.
Agreed.
Okay.
I'm the first to say that. So
I think sometimes with a lot of groups, they're protective with putting themselves out there because either they've been taken advantage of or they've they know people that have been taken advantage of, right, because of it. And it's something that they believe in, and that they participate in and that they take seriously. Now, that being said, do you feel like those, we're not casting aspersions here, right? We're not talking shit about them.
No. There's nothing to talk shit about.
Were they a bigger part of everybody else, or did they only stay right there at the table?
A couple of them stayed at the table, and more so were kind of flitting around the room and knew a lot more people and all that kind of stuff.
The majority of people knew a lot more people. Oh, okay.
Really, kind of only.
So they weren't even necessarily outsiders, so to speak, in the room.
No.
They were very much a part of the community.
Yes,
we'll say. So the other question that I have that I pose to you is, in that scenario, and I mean this in general because I know what you will say. I know what you will say because what I would do. Do you feel like the responsibility is on the people there, or we'll say the outsider, right? Is the responsibility on you to try and interact, or is it on everybody else to try and pull you in, or does it depend on the environment?
All great questions.
Thank you.
I'm gonna say that
I just came up with
it's
those.
a little bit of everything. However, I will say this in all fairness: if I sat at the table like this,
arms
crossed, or just sat there and didn't talk to anybody, didn't try to introduce myself, and I was treated that way, I deserved it because I came in closed off,
right,
and I didn't. I didn't even try to have a conversation with people.
Right.
So for someone like me, who will literally talk to anybody, I literally put my stuff down. The guy was sitting at the table. I said, "My name is Tina. Nice to meet you." He told me his name. I put my hand out to shake his hand. When his fiance came over, I shook her hand. And then as people came to the table, I went to, some people didn't put their hand out or didn't accept the handshake, didn't tell me what their names were.
Yeah.
Whatever. And it's like, okay. So at that point in time, it's like, I feel like I put in the effort to show that I'm a friendly person and I was there.
Yeah.
I was asked to speak in front of the whole entire everybody that was there.
Right.
So I must not be an asshole, right? I must be a good person.
Agreed.
And clearly a supporter of the organization and in the community and the belief systems that they all have and whatnot. And so, coming back to the table though, after that, I had a smile on my face, and even he said, "You did a great job. That was really great." Nothing from the rest of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay,
interesting.
But I mean, it's like, to me, it's like, okay. And, I hate to say it, but when, there's like that whole, what's the word? Like the Mean Girls, they weren't mean girls. I'm just using the example as the girls are easy. It's easy to be mean when you've got 4 of you and there's only one person.
Sure.
It's easy to be the 4 mean people when you have the one,
absolutely,
against the 4 or whatever. So some people, I don't know if they are scared that if they talk to the stranger or, whatever. So I think that's kind of childish and silly in my opinion. Like if you want to talk to someone and get to know them, on the flip side, if you're someone who doesn't want to talk to someone, that's okay as well. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I just found it kind of funny that you're in a
Yeah.
community where you talk about those. I think I just have a hard time with hypocrisy,
Sure.
as you know.
I've never heard you say
people
that before.
people that are talking out of both sides of their mouth can eat shit, in my opinion. I don't care who you are.
Right.
I just be who you're gonna be, and that's fine. But don't talk about it being one way and you're acting another, because I watch the actions.
Right.
And so to me, it just felt a little, I don't know. I was, again, it was like I was fine with it in the sense of all that, but it was like the more I thought about it, I thought you guys didn't really do a very good job of creating like a nice environment, to like,
for lack of a better term, a
like,
safe space, right?
I mean, I could have been like a complete asshole and left or done whatever, and but I was enjoying myself listening to the stories and the other stuff. So that's what I'm saying, is I was proud of myself that I didn't need to have a group of people around me. I feel comfortable by myself.
Right.
Some people don't have that ability.
Right.
They feel uncomfortable. They feel alone. They feel whatever. And I think that's where, when people realize they get to that level where you can be in a room by yourself and be okay with it. I mean, especially because nobody was being mean. Nobody was bullying.
No,
it's not
at all. They just
it's a different story if you walk in a room and everybody's like an asshole to you. It's like a completely different story. But
they just weren't open arms.
Yeah, it was just,
kind of
but with each other, they were all, ha ha, whatever.
Right.
And I mean, and I was like, with a smile, like, you know me. I'm always smiling unless there's a reason not to. And
I think in that environment, I think it depends on the environment and again what you're there for. In that sense, because there's more of them than there. I'm going to say this only because they're probably there more frequently, right?
Absolutely.
There's more of them than there are of you.
Absolutely.
And what they stand for and believe in, they should be bringing people in, right? So a great example is, and this is, using church or religion is actually a very good example. You go to certain churches, and they know you've not been there before. A lot of people will come up and talk to you, right? Because they're trying to, they're witnessing, and but they're welcoming you in because you're there for pretty much probably the same reasons or one of the same reasons everybody else is. So that is something that's very positive about going to certain churches. You go to a giant church, or a lot of times a Catholic church, I'll pick on a little bit because they're very this way. We're here to get this done, and we got to get out. Right. So they're not quite as opening. The expectation is your ass should have been here last week. Weren't you here then?
Or you're here because football season's over. I remember all the punishing comments that they used to say in church.
But regular. I'm going to say regular churches. Yeah, non-denominational churches, regular Christian churches, for lack of a better term, are very much welcoming and happy to see that you're there because you're there for the right reason, right? Typically. So I think it falls on the group in a setting like that when it switches to back to what we were talking about before, like a networking event. It's on you because you're going to get out of it what you put into it.
And you're all there for that same reason.
Correct. So if you choose to put yourself in a box in a corner somewhere, put a wall up, then you're not going to get anything out of it.
Well, but you also kind of put a wall up when you're like, again, like, I'm a loan officer, so I can only be around other loan officers. Right. Or I don't want to be around any. I love being around other loan officers.
Right.
I have friends that work at different companies, that work at banks, credit unions, brokers, other different lenders like I work at. I love having the camaraderie with other people that do the same thing I do. There's a lot of them who don't, and they don't want to have, like, they look at you as like your competition, and they kind of treat you like shit. And it's kind of, again, I don't understand. To me, you're putting yourself in this box that you're over here by yourself. Like, you can only be a loan officer. Like, you can't, like, that's what's funny is like, are you Are you only a loan officer? Are you only a realtor? Are you only a policeman? Are you only a stay-at-home mom? Are you only a dad? Are you like, stop saying that.
Yeah.
Like this is what I don't like about people. There's so many different, we have so many different layers to ourselves as people. And if you're going to put yourself in a box, okay, if you're going to put yourself in a box, pick the best fucking box you have then.
Right.
Pick the best fucking box, the most successful box or whatever, if you're going to be that stupid and put yourself where you can only be, you know, I'm a liberal, I'm a conservative, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm whatever the fuck you want to be. I'm a woman, I'm a man, I'm, you know, I'm trans, whatever it is. Why do we have to keep proclaiming all of it? Like, it's great to be proud of who you are, but you're fucking putting yourself in this fucking box.
It's not all you are.
No. And that's what, but I feel like when you have to stand up and proclaim, you're fucking putting yourself in a box.
Well, I say it all the time.
You're putting yourself over here where now nobody over here wants to talk to you because you're putting yourself in this box.
Right.
By yourself.
We've talked about like, you know, the thing at my work, people will say, oh, I'm just a dispatcher, right? We've talked about that a little bit.
Right.
The term just is very almost demeaning in that use. Right. So I've trained myself to say I'm a dispatcher. Right.
Except when
unless I'm being
sarcastic.
a sarcastic ass. Right. Yeah. But I am a dispatcher, but I am not. Being a dispatcher isn't who I am.
Right.
It's what I do for a living.
Correct.
And for me, when I'm not at work, I'm done with it. Right. You know, but that's me. And I'm not criticizing. There's a lot of people that are very involved in the community.
Yeah.
And they embrace all of it. I did that for a while, and now I've let that go. Because it's what I do for a living, and I can still do it very well, and I can still be passionate about it. But it's I leave it there.
It's a part of yourself.
Correct. It's a part of It's a part of yourself. Right.
And there's nothing wrong with. I think that's the part that so many people are missing out on, and I think that's something I feel like I've always, when people talk about connecting. So sometimes the connection is that, oh, you know what? You're a dispatcher. That person's a dispatcher. So you have that in common. Okay. Yeah. So potentially that's what you potentially start the conversation with, is that you both have that understanding. At the same time, sometimes you both might be like,
right.
Like, you know, it's like when you're single. Oh, you're single. I'm single. Oh, so we must be a good fit. Oh, well, people will fix us up because we're both single, even though we have nothing in common.
Well, I think we talked about that a little bit with, I don't remember which episode it was in, if it was cuffing season or whatever, but, you know, you're gay, I'm gay.
Yeah. So we get together.
Yeah. Or, oh, I have a gay cousin I should connect you to. Yeah. Because that's the only thing that they're going to be able to live together forever. It's the stupidest shit ever.
I mean, and I know I was put in that as well, like a zillion years ago, and I was like, you have no idea what I wanted, who I want to be with, and what kind of relationship I want. Just because I'm single doesn't mean. I mean,
shit, right.
Yeah, that's why it does not. And it's like, I wish people understood that they're creating their own, like this is how hatred starts, right? So it's like, if I said I hate, you know, people with green hands, I'm just gonna make some shit up.
Yeah, I hate those.
I hate people with green hands. I get myself all riled up that I'm a green hand hater.
Right.
I got myself all riled up about it. I might be missing out on some of the greatest fucking people in the world because I isolated myself away from, just because I put those people in that, they put themselves in the box of they're on the green-handed side and I'm not.
Right.
But they're also missing out on a great opportunity for a great fucking person in me.
Right.
So we're missing out on these opportunities to get to know some amazing people just because, oh, you're different. But then at the same time, we all need to be different and we all need to get along.
Right.
Which is it?
Right.
I get confused when I talk to people sometimes. Didn't you just tell me that you wanted people to be nice to each other? I haven't seen you do anything nice. I'll tell you what's really funny. I used to work at Borders Bookstore in Oak Park.
Yeah.
Oak Park is one of those neighborhoods that is tolerant, but not nice.
Yeah.
The people weren't nice in Oak Park. I'm sorry if you live in Oak Park. I'm sorry, but the reality is you are tolerant of different people, but you are not nice. And I know because I was the smiley, happy person at the bookstore, and people would come in and they were just fucking miserable when they'd
Yeah.
walk in. It was just
Sure.
snooty to themselves. You don't belong. Like, and it's one of those, like, you don't belong here because you're smiling and happy and whatever. And it was like, you know what I mean? Like, even
Yeah.
some of the people I worked with, they're like, why are you always so happy?
Right. Well, it's like,
Why aren't you happy?
it's like when Country Mouse goes to the city, right? They're just,
it's like, but it was just so funny to me.
right.
And so the funny part is I'd be like, I don't understand. Like, you're tolerant of different races, different religions, your different genders and
Absolutely.
sexes and in ethnicities. Like, you're all tolerant of it, but you don't fucking like each other. So
Right.
what good
Well,
does that do anybody?
There's a difference in
like, that doesn't make any sense.
there's a difference in tolerance and acceptance. Tolerance means they put up with them. They don't give them shit for being there, but they don't
Good
want
point.
anything to do with them.
Good point.
They're not accepting of them. They just
No, I think they were
tolerate them.
accepting. No, I think there's accepting. They just weren't tolerant of anybody. Like, literally, it didn't matter. They were just not nice people that would come into
Sure.
the bookstore.
Yeah.
Like, honest to God, they would ask me why I was so smiley
Yeah, but
all
then
the
they can't
time.
be accepting, and they can't be tolerant if they're not accepting of you being smiley and happy.
Well, I mean, they
Doesn't
weren't
work that way.
tolerant of a happy, smiley person.
Sure. Okay.
I think I had to be
Right. Right. Womp womp.
wah, wah,
Um,
Eeyore,
so-
whatever. But you know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
it's
I
like,
do.
So
I
it's
do.
like funny because you're known to be this neighborhood that's supposed to be diverse, but
Diverse.
then when you
Correct.
but then when you're around all these different kinds, because the bookstore was huge and there was all kinds of people in the bookstore, it wasn't
it's
together.
segregated, right? They're
Exactly.
segregating
And I would
themselves.
just look around. So that's where my brain goes.
Well,
Is I think about, like, I don't care. Literally, you're a good person with a good heart. Great.
Correct.
I'm going to talk to you all day long. I don't care if you have eyes. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what you're wearing. I don't give a shit. You're a nice person, a kind
Right.
person.
But-
We're good.
I think just because they're diverse, again, does not mean they're accepting. They're accepting of having and being around other cultures and that type of stuff. Meaning they're not saying we don't want black people in our neighborhood. We don't want gays in our neighborhood. We don't want this group or that group
Yeah.
or whatever in our neighborhood. They're accepting in the sense of we're good with having them here. We just don't necessarily want anything to fucking do with them.
Yeah, but
So
how
they're-
is that helping? I guess
I'm not
that's-
saying it's helping. I'm
right.
clarifying
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
but as you're saying that, it's making me think that's part of the problem with people.
No shit.
But I never really thought of it before. Like, until you just said that, it's like a light bulb went on.
Right.
Because
People, so the
I guess
thing
that's-
is,
I mean, yeah.
there are people that have a mentality of wanting to be accepting because they know that that's the right thing to do, right?
Well,
And
okay.
and they live under the guise of being an accepting person.
Okay.
But just because you tolerate them, I'm going to go back to what I
Yeah.
said before,
No, that
does
makes
not
sense.
mean you accept them.
No, that's right.
You're tolerating living around them. You want nothing to do with them. If you want nothing to do with them, then that means, and we're talking about, let's
Just anybody.
let's make it equal here. Good people. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not talking about shitheads and non-shitheads living together. Okay.
Yeah.
Takers and non-takers. We're not talking about that. We're
Mhm.
talking about equal playing field here. Okay? We're talking about good people on both sides. Doesn't matter what your culture, your religion, your sex, your gender, any of that stuff is.
Okay.
Your race, none of it. Good people. If you're tolerating living around them or being around them, that does not mean you're accepting them, because there's absolutely no fucking reason you can't accept them because they're good people.
Interesting.
They're good people. Maybe they have a different set of values or religious beliefs. That has nothing to do with you. They're not going to convert you if you don't want to be converted. You know, we've talked about this with with cheaters.
Yeah.
Cheaters not going to cheat unless they want to fucking cheat.
That's right.
You can't make someone cheat. This is my argument about portrayal of men in everything, right? Oh, boobies. Oh, I'm gonna go fuck her, right? Because that's just how it has to be. Because that me man, like boobies. That's what we. That's how we're portrayed.
Yeah.
Because clearly we can't help ourselves.
Yeah.
So, but my whole point about that is just they're being tolerant is one thing. You're putting up with it.
Yeah.
Because you don't feel like, well, first off, you don't want to get called out for not.
Yeah.
Right. That's one thing. And they don't necessarily like it or accept it. But, I can't say shit about it because that's not the right thing to do either. So we have to live in this area. I'm going to go be in the deli section at the grocery store and you're going to be there. But I don't give a fuck if you bought the blazing buffalo chicken and I'm not going to have a conversation with you about it. Don't talk to me. I'm going to get my Toronto rolls and get the fuck out of here. Right. Yeah. I don't care about you. But it's okay that you live here. Just stop. Don't look at me and don't talk to me.
Yeah.
That's the attitude. That's how I picture that.
That's interesting, actually.
Thank you.
No, really. I mean.
No, really. Thank you.
I'm thinking tolerance versus accepting. So I think now when I review posts and comments from my Facebook friends, I'm going to have a different view on how I see that now. Is this person being tolerant?
Yeah.
Or is this person being accepting?
Well, it's all over the place.
Oh, no,
there.
I know.
Can read
just
it.
Feel like
you can see it.
Because and I never really thought of, I know there's a difference.
Yeah.
But I never really, until you just said that, because it makes sense. And I've said that about working at the border store a lot of times where there was a lot of reasons for me there that was funny, that I was different than most people there. But the whole, the whole having the diverse community, but then not being nice to each other. I was like, so collectively you're not nice to each other, so that makes it diverse. Like I always tried to understand it, but I could never really get anyone to understand no one wanted to talk about it.
Well, and the big question would be is that their tribe? Are they just a tribe of people that don't want to deal with one another?
I mean, I guess it's just people just working at a bookstore.
I just don't think they care.
Yeah, because I think some people just don't look that deep into stuff, and I think sometimes
they want to be left alone.
It's like I'm at the
and go on
bookstore
about their
working,
business.
and I'm just going home and doing whatever. So yeah.
Crud! I was going to ask something in there, and I don't remember what it was. Oh well. So let's go to Vegas. Yeah, let's go to Vegas.
Red Eye?
You're right. We could probably make it. We could be there by like 3 a.m. We could blow a lot of money before we got back here tomorrow. So we went to Vegas. We hung out with friends. We went with your cousin and a couple of our very closest friends. We hung out at our favorite place, Circa. Shout out to Circa. Hit us up. Sponsorship. We'll talk about you every fucking time. Yeah. I'll wear your shirts every episode. I don't care. We went and hung out with them at a different hotel at the Wynn. Okay. Mm-hmm. The Wynn, it's kind of a fancy hotel.
Yeah, it is.
It's kind of a fancy hotel. I didn't realize that we'd been in there before. We've been there a couple times. Wynn/Encore. You can get to the Encore by going through Wynn, which I don't know why I never thought to just go straight to Encore before, but we've always gone to Wynn and then walked through the hotel. Excuse me. Because we've gone to Sinatra a couple times there. Such
restaurant.
Great food. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Very good.
So good.
But anyway, our friends were staying there and because they had wanted to stay there, they like to live it up sometimes. And that I think that's awesome. Mm-hmm. But it's really fancy. Like we're giving him shit because our friend sent us a picture of the side of his bed. And because when we were there was like this cloth on the side of his bed. I'm like, what the hell is that? It looked like satin or some shit. And he goes, oh, that's for my slippers. And I'm like, what?
Slippers?
For your slippers? He goes, yeah, we have turn down service. So they come and put my slippers on the cloth. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here with this shit. Okay. You can't get your own
Ridiculous.
fucking slippers
Why do you
next to
have
the bed.
slippers in the
I
hotel in
don't know.
Vegas?
I don't. I think they provided them. He didn't
I
bring them
know they
with.
did.
Yeah.
Slippers and robes.
It
Remember,
was.
everything was for sale.
It was ridiculous.
It was fucking
And
ridiculous.
for those that haven't been to Vegas, you know, when we stay at Circa, when we stay at Circa, how many times have I mentioned Circa? I'm just trying to get a sponsorship here. Help me out, people. Tag Circa. When we stay there, we'll play like roulette, right? We'll go by the blackjack tables. I don't usually play blackjack, but we look at the tables. We like to see what it costs to play a hand or a round of roulette or whatever, the minimums. And while we were there, it was $15, which is kind of cheap, actually. But you know, when we're there on a Monday and Tuesday, prices go down. Weekends come around, it goes up. It goes up like $25
Yeah, I
or
think
something.
it's like 25.
Because that's when everybody's there. Still not terrible, especially when, as we're going through the Wynn, the cheapest table I saw was $50
on a Monday.
On a Monday
afternoon,
right? So that's $50 for one hand of blackjack, right? And there were other tables that were 100. I even saw one that was not open yet, but it was 1,000.
I remember.
But $100, and there were people. The table was full. Like, who's got money to do this? Do you like? I would sit down and go, 2 hands. I'm out. I didn't win. I'll see you guys later. That's my Vegas experience.
Yeah.
So it's fancy.
Yeah.
You know, in a sense, or
I mean, it was beautiful.
It's fancy. No, it's a great hotel. It's very beautiful. The casino was fun to gamble in. We actually did pretty well at that casino, as well as at the Encore side. You know, so because that was where we played the Whitney Houston game, right? Was that the Encore? Yeah, and we did pretty well on that.
You did.
I did pretty well on that. But I was trying to win $1 million, man, but it didn't work. But we sat at the pool a couple days.
Yep.
And
the European pool.
Yes, there were boobies out, and that was a new experience for me. This is different. Not everybody, you know, but there were a few. It's optional, of course, you know. So if you wanted to,
adult pool,
correct, which is right up our alley because we don't want kids around when we're hanging out at the pool, because that's not what we're there for. But they're fancy, you know, fancy people, pinkies in the air.
Fancy bathing suits and necklaces and sunglasses and hairstyles and I felt like a fish out of water.
Right, you did.
I did.
But so we, you know, you and I went and sat the second day we went over. We went and sat and we're talking.
Yeah.
If you want, I don't know if you want to tell them what we were talking about.
No, you could tell them.
I don't remember what we were talking about. No, I'm just kidding. You were feeling uncomfortable. There was a lot of stuff that you felt a little bit out of place there, maybe a lot of it out of place at this pool.
I felt judged.
Yeah, and in what I said to you, though, you did say you felt judged. And the conversation we talked about was levels, right?
Yeah.
So these people are putting themselves in a box.
Yep.
And it's in the fancy box, right? And if you're not part of the fancy box, that you kind of...
And they let you know that you're not part of the fancy box.
Right. Now, I never got that feeling while I was there. But I didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I normally don't either, but for some reason
reason you were feeling it.
I was a little off that day.
And nobody did anything in particular. We weren't...
The lady with the pearls and the pink bathing suit. Okay. I could still picture her sitting
I don't even remember who she was.
With her foster grants.
Her foster grants. Yeah, what is this, 1987? Jesus
I think
Christ.
she was 87, but anyway.
They may have been from the 80s then. So, you know, it's an interesting environment. And what I said to you when we were talking about it, because you felt kind of out of place. And the funny thing is as fancy as it was, they still behaved the same way. Like,
well, they're fucking people.
Correct. So they let their beer cans or their seltzer cans blow across and into the pool. Nobody goes and picks it up.
Well, that's because that's what the poppers do.
They pick
up after them.
They didn't, because they were still floating in the pool.
No, I mean, that's why they didn't run after him, because
Sure.
that's what they pay someone
There was
to
a
do.
menu at the bottom of the pool, a couple of napkins. This was on the second day. The first day it wasn't quite like that.
Yeah.
Second day it was. And I think there was more of a convention or something happening there that day. But in none of this is to talk shit about the hotel, because they were just fine, you know. And I had said there's levels to what each of us are willing to spend, do, put our money on,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. And, you know, even our friends, you know, one of our good friends, she went and bought an expensive purse. And we're both like, I'd never fucking spend that kind of money on it. But in talking with her, we got an understanding that it's something that holds value and can be resold and get your money back. So it lent perspective to that side of things.
Well, it's
right?
something that she loves.
Yeah, absolutely. She loves them, and it's worthwhile.
Yeah, it's not a fad.
Correct. And it's not something so unique that she'd never be able to sell anyway.
Right.
So to me, that's smart. You know, if you're going to spend money on something that is quality and expensive, if it's something you're going to use a lot and wear it out, great. If it's something that you're going to use, not wear it out, but can resell it later on and get your money back out of it, super smart
It's like
decision.
an investment, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the way she perceived it, which was kind of interesting. So.
Right. But it fell in line with what we were talking about, because you're like, what the hell? You know, it was all of it was coming at you at once, I think. Right?
I feel like it, yeah.
Yeah.
I was a little off that day, for sure.
You were. Only for a little bit, though. After we talked, you were better.
Course.
And the key was figuring out that everybody, this is the acceptance part, right? Not the tolerate part, the acceptance part. You accept the fact that they're making those decisions because that's what they like to do. And they've made that decision to spend their money in that way. And maybe for some folks, you know, just like I use the example of folks will come with us to Vegas and they'll put $20 in the slot machine and they'll lose it and they'll be like, oh, I'm not fucking doing this anymore. This is crazy. And I'm going, $20? Like, God, I've wasted a bet on $20 before on those damn things because I didn't even pay attention. It didn't stop us from continuing to play, you know? And that's our limit, our level,
right?
You know,
right?
And they probably look at us that way. They're like, oh, well, I would never put that much money in the thing. So I think that's where the acceptance has to come in, that these folks are there doing what they love to do, hopefully, you know. If they're being pretentious and that's the only reason and they're doing it for attention, that's a different story, right? Yeah. And you can't pay attention to those people, because they ultimately, for us, they don't affect us and they don't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Right? But they're putting themselves in that pretentious box. They're not getting to meet other people or willing to meet other people that may have a positive impact on their life.
That's what I'm saying.
Might open them up to something else that they really enjoy to do.
I know. There's a lot of people missing out on a lot of people.
Sure.
Because of their hate for shit that they don't even know what the fuck they're hating.
Right. Or
someone else told them to hate.
Prejudice, but their own thought processes on what they should accept and not accept.
That's what I was thinking about, and feeling kind of like not really sad per se, but disappointed, because there's just so many different kinds of people in the world, and it's fun talking to people from all over the world, all over the country, different ages, different races, different religions, different cultures, different ideas, different political views. And it's like so awesome to be able to have conversations, because it's like a growing thing, right? Because you're learning, like, oh my God, I didn't know that, or I didn't understand that before. Thanks for explaining that. But how do we do that if we're not willing to get outside the box of this shit and keep putting ourselves in the little clique of whatever? I just feel sad for people, because so many people who are missing out on so many wonderful people because they're just
Sure.
you're just like, I don't know. It just makes me sad, I think, sometimes for people.
Yeah.
Especially now, people want connection and you have the ability to have true, real connections with other human beings, but you're not even like looking at people as human beings. That's the other part that's kind of sad. Like, I think that's kind of how I felt that day. Like, I think I even used the term like I felt like I didn't belong there. Like, here's me in my, Macy's bathing suits, and they're all walking around in like, what the fuck is that place? Van Cleef's, or like there's all these really expensive like
Van
there was a pair of shoes that we looked at.
Yeah.
Remember? So we're walking by and there's a pair of shoes, and Norm and my cousin are like, "Oh my god, those would be really cool." They were gym shoes, basically.
Yeah, they look like
sparkly fucking
almost
gym
like
shoes.
Converse, low top Converse,
And
almost.
they were pretty
Similar.
cool, and they were like this really pretty shade of green and whatever.
Almost like crystals all over them.
And I'm like, okay, just for shits and giggles, because I'm like, I'm not spending like, I go, those are gonna be well over $1,000. I'm not spending that much money on a pair of gym shoes and blah blah blah. So just for shits and giggles, I went in there and I didn't have my cheaters on, and I looked and I thought it said $295, and I was like, but then I looked closer and it was $2,950, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, and then so I was like, I just put the shoes down. I just told the lady, these are really nice shoes, and she was nice with a little smile, but then she went over and like made sure she put it back the right. I was like, see, like it's those little things that kind of make you feel like you're not sophisticated enough to be in the store.
So
it's kind of interesting, but it's a little bit of like,
right.
Because
I
put them
moment.
back very nicely. I didn't just throw them back on there,
but they weren't the way they had them.
But it's like, it's still funny though. Like, you know what I mean? Like she
reality
didn't even say, is there anything I can help you with?
Right.
She just stood there with this shitty grin on her face. Like, you don't belong in here and you can't afford the stuff in here. You're just looking she probably sees that all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was
people walk in the store and manhandle the expensive shoes, and she's like,
manhandle the shoes.
I didn't say you did. But we also the one shoe wouldn't come off, so you pulled on it, wouldn't come off there, so you had to set it back down, and then the one shoe the first shoe you tried to take off of there, you couldn't see it or it wouldn't come completely off.
The green one?
Yes. And then you lifted the other one to see the tag on it. And that's why it wasn't put back the way they had it. So there's a specific standard for doing it. What she could have done better instead of pretty womaning us. We didn't even make it out the door, and she walked over and fixed them. I was like, okay, that was pretty funny. She completely did it though. It was really funny.
I can picture the look on her face. She was all like,
cheesy smile.
Get the fuck out of my store, you peasant.
Yeah, stop messing with stuff.
Oh my god.
I think it's more like having to deal with people walking through the fancy stores.
Probably, but I mean, still, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the funny thing is that, honest to God, I could have bought those shoes.
Right.
I wouldn't, though. I'm not spending $3,000 on a pair of fucking gym shoes.
No, and I am with you on that.
But I'm just saying, like, I wanted to walk up to her and be like, "Listen, bitch, I can fucking buy these right now. I mean, like, I have money in the bank. It's not even on a credit card. I could fucking buy these shoes right now."
Sure.
And it's like, there's this part of me that in my brain where I just want to be like, you're judging me for something without understanding whatever. And then there's this other part of me that says, who fucking cares, Tina?
But
you know what I mean? Like,
I think
that's the little battle in my brain, by the way. It's like, It's like, who cares, Tina?
Well, I'm going to stop you with it because you don't know that's what she was thinking. You're assuming that's what she was thinking.
See the look on her face?
Yes, I did. And it's one more. First off, we never saw anybody in that store the first time we walked past it.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Right. So the next time when we went over, there were the only ones. And again, she probably gets a zillion people that walk in there a day that pick up a pair of shoes and go, I'm not paying $3,000 for some sparkly shoes, and puts them down after she's fixed everything in the store. And they're not serious people. So 1 out of 50 is probably serious about buying a pair of shoes. This wasn't Louboutins or something, right?
No.
This wasn't a fancy ass fucking
remember
specific
what the
shoe store.
It was a specific shoe
well,
store.
it was, but not something we would know.
It was only a shoe store.
Correct. But it's not the things that we would specifically know that are known for being super popular and expensive shoes.
They were very expensive.
But yeah, they were. And they had some other cool ones. They had like these purple pinkish ones. They were cool. The key is we didn't have enough information to know that's what she was thinking. We assume it, and the reason we're assuming it is it's because it's our own thoughts and perceptions of how we've dealt with other people in those situations. So we're reacting the way we would have reacted before around those same people. She could have been thinking of that. She could have been saying, go back to your fucking trailer, you trash. Or she could have been like, fuck, now I got to fix these again. And I know you're not going to fucking buy them while you're touching the shoes, but she has to smile and take it. And she goes over and fixes them as soon as we leave. Right. We don't know what she was thinking, but we know what we were feeling. And the feeling technically wasn't real. And we're putting ourselves in that box and that's what ultimately you were doing that day, the way you were feeling when we were sitting at the pool. You were putting yourself in that box that day because everybody else was perceived to be fancy.
That's
perceived
true.
To
I was in the non-fancy
we
box.
We don't know.
That's true.
I mean, there's plenty of people we know that go to places like that and their bags, their handbags are knockoffs, But they play it off like it's not, they're trying to live a certain way. So you're putting yourself in that box because you think that's what they're, so you're now making your own little group, the fancy people group over there. I'll be over here and, I don't want to deal with you because I feel like you're judging me and you feel like I shouldn't be here. When we know we probably, if we're talking money wise, we probably make as much as a lot of those people do at that in theirs. Right. Well, we know at least out of the 5 of us, we probably make the most money that were at the place and we weren't even staying there. So, and I'll guarantee you some of the others were that way too. Some of those people might have gotten deals on fucking Orbits or something and decided to stay there. There were plenty of other very,
there were some
perceived wealthy businessmen and women and that kind of stuff. There's no doubt about it. You don't sit down and play multiple hands of blackjack at $100 a pop if you don't
have money.
Or at least the money to play blackjack. Maybe they weren't eating that night. I don't know.
Or they sold their house.
Right, of course. So I think in that case, you were putting yourself in that box.
No, that's a good point.
And I'm glad that we got to have the conversation because you needed to understand that we have to remind ourselves, all of us have to remind ourselves sometimes that, okay, you're judging people based on what you would do. You're judging them based on what you would spend your money on or what you think is frivolous. And it's none of your fucking business what they're spending their money on. That maybe that's the last bit of joy they have that day or this week or month or year. Or there's been a lot of shit happening in their lives up to that point, and them doing what they're doing in that moment actually brought them that much joy and they're happier for it. We don't see that though. We see it with our own experiences and what we wouldn't do, and we're judging them on it, and we're segregating ourselves away from them because it's not something we would do. Well, if you're going to make stupid decisions, in our opinion, stupid decisions about stuff, in the way you're living your life right now, I don't want to be part of that. So I'm going to stay over here because I don't want to be over there by you.
But that's why it's great that you can talk, because then you find out that's not what's actually happening.
Agreed.
And then nobody's in any boxes.
Agreed.
Which is what we were saying earlier, is a lot of people are missing out on the opportunity to have real connections with real people.
The key is we can't for anybody that's thinking about this right now, hopefully they are, otherwise I don't know what you've wasted your last hour doing. If you're thinking about this, it's on you in a lot of ways to, cut a hole in their box and go inside. Right? Right?
Reach in.
Let's make a drawbridge in this fucking castle box over here. I'm coming in. Right? So you just carve your own and you change the box. And go in, because if you sit around and wait for them to do it, it's okay. If you're okay with it in that moment, waiting for them to come do it, then fine.
Yeah.
But accept the fact that that's what you chose to do.
Right, of course.
Because,
like me walking up to the table,
right,
and instead of waiting for someone to say something to me,
yes,
I introduced myself first and put my hand out and shook hands.
Yeah, right.
I chose to be the initiator.
You did. And then you also chose not to push it any farther when they were just interacting with one another. You didn't insert yourself into the conversation. So
I did not.
While they didn't include you, you didn't insert yourself.
I just listened,
now,
but I didn't say anything. Yeah.
There's protocol, right? There's social protocol and things that you don't just do, because then you are kind of that person. So in a case like that, I probably wouldn't have
I just
inserted
and
myself
and
either.
Listened
right.
When the one guy was telling the story.
Right.
I was just eating my soup and listening to a story,
right,
and drinking my water and smiling and listening to these people, and
right.
that was it. Just like whatever.
Right. And the only thing, if I was going to say there was, the only thing you could have done differently is inserted yourself in there. Otherwise, and you have to determine if that time is right or not. And if you decide it's not, you have to go home at the end of the day being okay with the fact that you made the decision. And I know you
Which
were.
I was 100%.
It wasn't,
that's what I'm saying. There was no
what I'm
regret
saying
on it.
is not about you. It's about other people out there listening. Because they could easily go home and be upset about the fact that they didn't get included. Well, okay, it's a two-way street. It goes back to what we talk about in relationships, in love relationships. And when they break up, you have to own the part
that's right
that you played in the demise of that relationship just as much as the other person. Now, might be more on one person than the other, possibly.
Correct.
But there's usually something in there that you can learn from and take responsibility for.
Agreed.
So just be okay with it, but don't stay that way. Don't be okay with it every time. Otherwise, what are you doing? You have to ask yourself, what am I going out for? What am I here at this event for? Because then you're just going to hate events and be pissed off. And that's never good either. Right. And we're social creatures. Ultimately, we are social beings. So, it's okay to talk to other people. Yeah. It's important, because we know, we always reference COVID because it was such a horrific time for isolation and people building up people's anxieties and fear. Just it was built up so much. Right. It was built up so much. And sometimes it's our own doing, the fear is our own, and we allow it to control us, whether somebody specifically is doing it or not. Now we could rant for a couple hours about who was doing it and stuff back then, but it's even harder now that we're past it. We're a couple years past it,
but there's still people. The remnants are still there.
They are.
Yeah.
We need to stop using it as an excuse of what we learned, and get your ass out there and talk to people. Yeah. Interact with them. I'm not saying you got to be the happiest go lucky person at the party and get all the attention or whatever, but make an effort, because you make the effort this time, the next person, the effort's going to be a lot easier. Yeah. You're not going to feel as anxious or unsure of yourself when you go to do it the next time. So, it's just my thoughts.
Solving solving problems one
person at a time.
Yeah, there we
one
go.
Problem at a time.
Exactly. That's all, folks.
Right, diva. Anyway, glad we got to talk about that. We have some other topics. We've been coming up with a bunch of them lately. But if anybody has anything, any topics, we'll give a shout out to our newest fan, Joe. Right?
Hi, Joe.
He's been listening to us, and being relayed to us about how he likes the podcast, and we're happy about that.
And we appreciate your feedback.
Absolutely.
I think actually we got feedback on YouTube.
Yes, right.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, we appreciate that. But if you have anything, any questions, any comments, criticisms, you can take those and stick them in your ass. But you can send them to us if you want at realshowertalk@gmail.com.
As you saw, the light bulbs go on over my head throughout that. This is us too. Like, this is what's great about the conversation.
Correct.
I learned a lot today too. Thank you, Norm.
No, it's what I'm here for. That and the sex. No. We know part of that's true. So you guys can figure out which part.
Oh boy.
Anyway.
Okay, what were you saying?
See, told you, baby, it works. You can also reach us on Facebook at Real Shower Talk, and then on Instagram,
real.shower.talk.
That's correct. And again, like I said earlier, reach out, Soray Wellness, get yourself some red light going, maybe some emerald laser. I always want to say green laser because it's red light, green laser. If you do, let us know how it goes. We'd be interested in hearing about your experiences with that.
And then we'll share our before and afters and stuff later once we get that all squared away.
Yep.
We'll let you know how it goes.
Absolutely, when we're all done.
Thank you so much for listening.
Absolutely. Till next time.
Bye.